The cold wind swept through the vast green expanse of Rose Hill Cemetery in Chicago as Daniel Parker stood motionless before the freshly carved gravestone. His expensive black coat did little to shield him from the biting chill, but he barely noticed. The weight pressing against his chest felt heavier than any storm. The name etched into the marble, Isabella Thompson, felt like a wound that had just been reopened, bleeding with regret and sorrow. She had been gone for a week, and yet standing here, it still felt surreal. He had attended the funeral, watched her coffin being lowered into the ground, and yet something in him refused to accept that Isabella, the woman he had once loved with all his heart, was now just a memory. Daniel was not a man who let emotions control him. As the CEO of a successful real estate empire, he had built his fortune on logic, sharp decision-making, and an unshakable will. But today, none of that mattered. Today, he was just a man who had lost something irreplaceable. Their love had started like a dream in the bustling streets of New York, where they had first met. She was an artist, full of passion, life, and dreams that had no boundaries. He was already on his way to becoming a self-made millionaire, with his life dictated by deadlines, deals, and numbers. Despite their differences, they had fallen for each other, a whirlwind romance that had defied logic and reason. But love alone was never enough. Their marriage had suffered under the weight of his ambition. Late nights at the office turned into missed anniversaries, and business meetings replaced weekend getaways. The love that once burned brightly between them dimmed with every broken promise, every unanswered phone call, and every lonely night she spent waiting for him to come home. Eventually, she stopped waiting. One day, she walked out of their shared Manhattan apartment, leaving only a note behind. "I loved you, but I couldn't wait forever." That was 5 years ago. He never tried to bring her back, not because he didn't love her, but because he believed he had already lost her. Now, standing at her grave, the guilt was suffocating. Had she been happy in these years apart? Had she moved on? Had someone else given her the love and attention he had failed to provide? He had searched for her once, out of curiosity more than love, but she had disappeared without a trace. And now she lay here beneath the earth, taking with her all the unanswered questions he never dared to ask. He crouched down, his fingers brushing against the cold stone. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice cracking. "For everything." A muffled sob broke through the silence. Daniel stiffened. He wasn't alone. His eyes scanned the cemetery, his sharp instincts kicking in. A few rows away, near Isabella's grave, stood two small figures, children no older than 6 or 7. They were dressed in simple jackets, their heads bowed, tiny shoulders trembling. They were crying. A strange sense of déjà vu gripped him. Something about them, about the way they stood there, felt eerily familiar. He took a hesitant step forward, his shoes crunching against the gravel. The boys didn't notice him, too lost in their sorrow. One of them, the slightly taller one, sniffled loudly and placed a single white flower on the grave. "Mom, we miss you," the boy whispered, his voice barely audible in the wind. Daniel stopped breathing. His heart, which had been numb for years, suddenly began to race. "Mom?" His eyes darted between the gravestone and the children. They were calling Isabella their mother. He felt the world tilt beneath him as he took in their faces, their delicate features, the high cheekbones, the soft curve of their jawlines, the familiar deep brown eyes that mirrored his own reflection. A strange, terrifying thought gripped him. Oh, it wasn't possible. He took another step closer, and this time the boys heard him. The shorter one gasped and grabbed his brother's hand, both of them turning to face him with wide, frightened eyes. "Who are you?" the older boy asked, his voice cautious yet firm. Daniel opened his mouth, but no words came out. His throat had closed up, his mind struggling to make sense of what was happening. "These boys look like me, too much like me for it to be a coincidence." His gaze flickered back to the tombstone, the realization crashing over him like a tidal wave. Isabella had been pregnant when she left, and she never told him. His knees felt weak as he forced himself to speak. I knew your mother," he managed to say. his voice barely above a whisper. The boys exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from fear to curiosity. The younger one wiped his nose on his sleeve. "Are you Mommy's friend?" he asked, his voice filled with innocence. Daniel's chest tightened. How was he supposed to answer that? He wanted to say yes. He wanted to tell them that he had loved their mother more than anything, that he had once dreamed of a future with her. But life had pulled them apart. He wanted to tell them that he had no idea they existed, that if he had known, nothing in the world would have kept him away from them. But all those words got stuck in his throat. Instead, he nodded slowly. The older boy narrowed his eyes. "Why didn't you come to her funeral?" he asked, his voice laced with suspicion. Daniel swallowed hard. He had been at the funeral, standing in the back, watching from a distance. He had felt like an outsider, like someone who had no right to mourn her after abandoning her all those years ago. But now, standing here, looking at these two boys who carried his blood, his DNA, he realized just how much he had lost. A painful silence stretched between them, broken only by the rustling of the wind through the trees. Before he could think of what to say, an elderly woman rushed towards them, her face filled with concern. "Noah? Liam. What did I tell you about talking to strangers?" She scolded gently, wrapping her arms around the boys protectively. Daniel's head snapped up. "Noah? Liam?" Their names rang in his ears like an echo from a life he had never known. The boy shrank slightly under the woman's gaze, but didn't move away. "He knew Mommy," Noah murmured. The woman's eyes finally met Daniel's, and in that instant, he saw the recognition flicker across her face. She knew who he was. More than that, she knew what he was to them. Her expression hardened, her body tensing as if preparing for a battle. "You need to leave," she said firmly. Daniel's jaw clenched. He had spent his entire life negotiating billion-dollar deals, bending powerful men to his will. But in this moment, he felt utterly powerless. He wasn't ready to leave. He needed answers. He needed to know his sons. But before he could say another word, the woman turned away, leading the boys toward the exit. He stood there frozen as his children disappeared from sight. As he stood motionless in the empty cemetery, his heart pounded as the boys and the elderly woman disappeared through the rusted iron gates of Rose Hill Cemetery. The chilling wind blew against his face, but he barely felt it. His mind was racing, flooded with a million questions, each one more painful than the last. How could Isabella have kept this from him? Why hadn't she told him she was pregnant when she left? Did she hate him that much? Or had she simply believed he wouldn't care? His hands clenched into fists as frustration and regret twisted inside him. For years, he had lived under the assumption that he and Isabella had nothing left between them. But now he knew that wasn't true. She had been carrying his children, his sons, and she never gave him the chance to be their father. His gaze fell back to the grave, the fresh soil covering her coffin still damp from last week's rain. She had taken the truth with her, leaving him in the dark, forcing him to discover the existence of Noah and Liam in the most heartbreaking way possible. He thought about their small faces, the way they clutched each other's hands as they cried at their mother's grave. They had no idea who he was. To them, he was just another stranger. A lump formed in his throat. He had spent years building a business empire, sealing billion-dollar deals, climbing to the top of the corporate world. But what had it all been for? He had sacrificed so much, his time, his relationships, his love for Isabella, and for what? To end up standing in a cemetery, realizing too late that he had lost something far more valuable than money. He turned away from the grave, his mind already made up. He needed to find them. He needed to know them. But more than that, he needed them to know him. He strode out of the cemetery, his footsteps heavy against the gravel, and got into his black Mercedes parked outside. His hands tightened around the steering wheel as he drove through the streets of Chicago, his thoughts a storm of emotions. He knew he had to find the woman who had taken the boys away. She wasn't their mother. She couldn't be. But she was their guardian. And if she was the one keeping them from him, he needed to know why. The next morning, Daniel sat in his office on the 43rd floor of the Willis Tower, staring at his laptop screen. His assistant, Karen, had always been efficient, and today was no exception. Within hours of his request, she had gathered everything there was to know about Isabella's life after she left him. What he saw made his stomach tighten with guilt. She had moved to Chicago 6 years ago, just a few months after their separation. There was no record of her remarrying, no evidence of another man in her life. She had lived modestly, working as a freelance artist, selling her paintings at small galleries and local art fairs. And then, 4 months ago, she was diagnosed with late-stage cancer, a slow, cruel disease that had taken her life piece by piece while he had been living in his penthouse in Manhattan, oblivious to her suffering. His eyes skimmed through the documents until they landed on the name of her closest contact, Margaret Hayes, the same woman he had seen with the boys at the cemetery, a retired school teacher aged 64. She had lived in Chicago her entire life. The report confirmed what he had already suspected. Margaret had been caring for Noah and Liam since Isabella's passing. He leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. So this was the woman standing between him and his children. That evening, Daniel found himself parked in front of a modest brick house in Lincoln Park. The house was small but well-maintained, with flower pots lining the porch and warm yellow lights glowing from the windows. He sat in his car for a long moment, wondering how he was supposed to do this. He had spent his entire life making tough negotiations, convincing investors to trust him with millions of dollars. But this was different. He wasn't just trying to win a deal, he was trying to win back something he had unknowingly lost. Taking a deep breath, he stepped out of the car and walked to the front door. He knocked twice, the sound echoing through the quiet evening. A few seconds later, the door opened slightly, and Margaret's weary eyes met his. For a moment, they simply stared at each other. Then, with a resigned sigh, she opened the door wider and stepped aside. "I figured you'd come," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Come in." He stepped inside, his eyes immediately scanning the cozy living room. A few framed pictures sat on a wooden table near the couch, photos of Noah and Liam at various ages. His chest tightened. He had missed everything, their first steps, their first words, their birthdays. He turned back to Margaret, his voice steady but filled with unspoken emotion. "Why didn't she tell me?" Margaret sighed and gestured for him to sit. He hesitated before lowering himself onto the couch. "Because she was afraid," she said softly. "Afraid you were too caught up in your world to care. She loved you, Daniel, but she knew the kind of life you lived. She didn't think you'd want to be a father." Her words hit him like a punch to the gut. She didn't think he'd want them. His fingers curled into fists. "That's not fair," he said, his voice rough. "She made that decision for me. She took away my right to know them." Margaret nodded slowly. "Maybe she did. But can you honestly say she was wrong? Where were you all these years, Daniel? Did you ever try to find her? Did you ever wonder if she was okay?" He opened his mouth to argue, but the words wouldn't come because she was right. He had assumed she had moved on, that she had found happiness somewhere else, and he had done nothing to change that assumption. The realization was like a knife to his heart. Margaret studied him for a long moment. "Look," she said finally, her voice softer now. "I don't doubt that you're their father, and I don't doubt that you regret not being there. But those boys, they don't know you. They've just lost their mother. They need stability, not a stranger suddenly claiming to be their dad." Daniel inhaled sharply. "And let me get to know them," he said, his voice quieter now, almost pleading. "I don't want to take them away from you, but I want to be in their lives. I need to be in their lives." Margaret sighed, her gaze searching his. "I don't know if that's a good idea." He leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. "Please," he whispered, "just give me a chance." A long silence stretched between them. Finally, Margaret looked away, exhaling deeply. "I'll think about it," she said. "That's the best I can offer." It wasn't the answer he wanted, but it was a start. Daniel left Margaret's house with a storm of emotions brewing inside him. The night air was cold, the streets of Lincoln Park quiet except for the distant hum of traffic. He sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel, his mind replying every word Margaret had said. She had agreed to think about letting him see Noah and Liam. But what did that really mean? Would she ever truly trust him enough? He couldn't blame her for being cautious. He was a stranger to them, a man who had unknowingly abandoned his own children. His stomach twisted at the thought. How many times had Isabella watched their sons grow, knowing that their father had no idea they even existed? Did she ever try to reach out only to stop herself? Or had she been too convinced that he wouldn't care? The more he thought about it, the heavier the guilt became. As the days passed, Daniel found himself increasingly consumed by thoughts of Noah and Liam. He realized that while he had been busy building his empire, he had missed out on the most important part of his life, his children. Their laughter, their first words, their childhood milestones, all of it had passed him by, leaving him with a gnawing sense of regret. He longed to connect with them, to make up for lost time, but he knew he had to approach this carefully. First opportunity came when he received a text from Margaret, inviting him to a school play where Liam would be performing. Daniel's heart raced at the thought of seeing his son on stage. He arrived early, his palms sweaty with anticipation. As he watched the other parents chatting and laughing, he felt an overwhelming sense of isolation. He was an outsider, a man who had once been a stranger to his own children. When the curtain rose and Liam appeared, dressed in a colorful costume, Daniel felt a surge of pride. He watched as Liam delivered his lines with enthusiasm, his bright smile lighting up the stage. For a brief moment, Daniel forgot about all his worries and just felt joy. After the performance, he rushed to the front to meet Liam. The boy's eyes lit up when he saw him. "Dad, did you see me? I was awesome." Daniel knelt down, embracing Liam tightly. "You were incredible. I'm so proud of you." Liam beamed up at him, his excitement infectious. But just as Daniel felt a glimmer of hope, he noticed Noah standing a few feet away, arms crossed, watching them with a guarded expression. The distance between father and son felt like a chasm, and Daniel's heart sank. "Hey, Noah," Daniel called, trying to sound cheerful. "What did you think of Liam's performance?" Noah shrugged, his face unreadable. It was okay. Daniel felt the weight of the rejection, but he didn't want to push. Instead, he focused on Liam, asking about his favorite parts of the play. After a few minutes, he felt Noah's eyes on him, and he turned to find the boy still watching, skepticism etched on his face. Later that evening, as they drove home, Daniel stole glances at Noah in the rearview mirror. The boy was quiet, lost in thought. Daniel wished he could bridge the gap, to show Noah that he was sincere and wanting to be a part of their lives. The following week, Daniel organized a day at the zoo, hoping to create new memories together. As they walked through the gates, Liam was filled with excitement, eagerly pointing out the various animals. Noah, however, hung back, his expression cautious. Daniel felt a pang of disappointment, but reminded himself that trust took time. While they watched the lions, Daniel knelt beside Noah. "What do you think of the lions?" he asked gently. Noah shrugged. "They're just big cats." Daniel smiled, trying to keep the conversation light. "Yeah, but look how powerful they are. It's amazing." Noah glanced at him, a flicker of interest breaking through his defenses. "I guess. Do you like big cats?" Daniel pressed, hoping to find common ground. "I like tigers better," Noah replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe we can see some tigers next time," Daniel suggested, feeling hopeful. As the day went on, Daniel tried to engage Noah in small conversations, sharing fun facts about the animals and making jokes. Slowly, he noticed Noah's stance relaxing a little, the tension in his shoulders easing. By the end of the day, as they headed home, Daniel felt small victory. Noah hadn't fully opened up, but he hadn't pushed him away either. It felt like a step in the right direction. Yet, that night, as Daniel lay in bed, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was still a long way from truly connecting with Noah. He needed to find a way to reach the boy, to show him that he was committed to being there for him and Liam, no matter how difficult the journey might be. The next day, Daniel decided to try a different approach. He called Margaret and suggested they have a picnic in the park. "It'll be casual, just some sandwiches and games," he said, hoping to create an environment where the boys could relax. Margaret agreed, and the following Saturday, they met at the park. Daniel spread out the blanket, and soon the boys were running around, playing tag and enjoying the sunshine. Liam was in his element, laughter bubbling from his lips, while Noah hesitated at first, watching from a distance. Come on, Noah. Join us, Daniel called out, waving him over. With a hesitant expression, Noah finally approached, joining in the game, albeit reluctantly. Daniel felt a flicker of hope as he watched Noah start to smile, even if it was small. As they sat down to eat, Daniel seized the moment to engage them in conversation. "What's your favorite game to play?" he asked, looking at both boys. "I love soccer," Liam exclaimed, his eyes lighting up. "I want to be a professional player." Daniel grinned. "That's awesome. I'd love to come watch you play." Noah, still somewhat reserved, added, "I like basketball." "Basketball, huh? We should shoot some hoops together sometime," Daniel suggested, hoping to create a bond over shared interests. "Maybe," Noah replied, but Daniel could see a hint of curiosity in his eyes. As the picnic continued, Daniel felt a growing sense of connection. The boys were opening up, sharing their favorite stories and joking with each other. They were still hesitant, but he could see glimpses of the bond they could build together. That evening, as he drove them home, Daniel felt a renewed sense of determination. He knew there would be challenges ahead, especially with Noah, but for the first time, he felt like they were making progress. He was committed to proving that he could be the father they both needed, even if it took time. The following week, Daniel was filled with anticipation as he prepared for his next meeting with Noah and Liam. He had learned that they would be attending a soccer game at the local park, and he made a mental note to show his support. As he arrived, he spotted the boys running around with their friends, the sounds of laughter and excitement filling the air. Daniel's heart swelled with pride as he watched Liam kick the ball with enthusiasm, while Noah stood a bit further back, observing the game with a thoughtful expression. Daniel approached them, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. "Hey, guys, you both look great out there," he called out, trying to sound casual. Liam turned and waved. "Dad, did you see my goal?" "Of course. It was amazing," Daniel replied, genuinely impressed. Noah glanced over, his expression still guarded but slightly more open than before. "You came again?" he remarked, though his tone lacked enthusiasm. "I wouldn't miss it for the world," Daniel said, hoping to convey his commitment. As the game continued, Daniel cheered from the sidelines, encouraging the boys and their teammates. He noticed that Noah was gradually relaxing, even joining in on the banter with his friends. When the game ended, Daniel approached the boys, excitement bubbling over. "How about some ice cream to celebrate?" Liam's eyes lit up. "Yes. Can we go to that place with the big sundaes?" "Absolutely," Daniel agreed, glancing at Noah, who was still processing the day's events. "What about you, Noah? Want to join us for ice cream?" Noah shrugged, but Daniel could see a flicker of interest in his eyes. "Sure, I guess." As they walked to the ice cream shop, Daniel felt a glimmer of hope. Liam chattered away about his favorite flavors, while Noah remained quieter, but he was no longer withdrawn. When they arrived, Daniel let the boys pick their own flavors, watching them with a smile as they debated the best combinations. Liam exclaimed, while Noah seemed fascinated, his usual caution fading as he engaged with the displays. As they moved through the museum, Daniel noticed a change in Noah. The boy was starting to open up, laughing at jokes and sharing his thoughts on the exhibits. Daniel felt a warmth in his chest, knowing that their bond was slowly strengthening. At one point, they reached the interactive section of the museum, where kids could engage with displays and learn through play. Daniel watched as Liam dove into the activities, while Noah lingered at the entrance, hesitant. "Come on, Noah. Let's see who can build the tallest tower," Daniel encouraged, gesturing for him to join. Noah hesitated, but after a moment, he stepped forward. "Okay, but I'm going to win," he said, the competitive spark in his eyes. Daniel smiled, thrilled to see Noah engaging. They spent the next hour building and laughing, the tension between them slowly dissolving. As they left the museum, Daniel felt a sense of hope. They were beginning to forge a connection, and he was determined to keep building on it. That evening, as he tucked the boys into bed, Daniel felt a wave of contentment wash over him. "I had a great time today," he said, looking at both of them. "I hope we can do it again soon." Liam nodded enthusiastically. "Can we go back to the museum?" "Definitely," Daniel replied, glancing at Noah, who was quiet but seemed more at ease than before. "Good night, Dad," Liam said, snuggling into his blankets. Good night, Noah, Daniel added, feeling optimistic. Good night, Noah replied softly, and for the first time, it didn't feel like a formality. As he closed the door, Daniel couldn't help but smile. They were still on a long journey, but he felt a sense of progress. Each small moment, each shared experience was a step toward building the family he had yearned for. He was determined to keep moving forward, no matter the challenges that lay ahead. The following weekend, Daniel felt a mix of excitement and anxiety as he prepared for a significant moment with Noah and Liam. He had decided it was time to be honest about his identity, to reveal to them that he was their father. The weight of this truth had been heavy on his heart, and he knew he needed to face it head on. They had planned a visit to the Field Museum, where the boys had enjoyed their time previously. Daniel hoped that the familiar environment would help ease the tension as he navigated this delicate conversation. As they arrived, Daniel noticed that Liam was his usual enthusiastic self, racing ahead to see the dinosaur exhibits. Noah walked more slowly, his expression thoughtful. Come on, Noah, you're going to love this, Daniel called out, trying to draw him into the excitement. I'm coming, Noah replied, though his tone was still cautious. As they moved through the museum, Daniel let the boys lead the way, marveling at the exhibits. He felt a surge of pride watching them, especially as Liam animatedly described what he wanted to be when he grew up. Daniel smiled, knowing that today would be a turning point. After spending some time exploring, they finally made their way to the dinosaur exhibit, where the boys were captivated by the massive skeletons. As they stood before the towering fossils, Daniel seized the moment. You know, boys, there's something I need to tell you, he began, his heart racing. Liam turned to him, curiosity shining in his eyes. What is it? Noah also looked up, his expression shifting to one of cautious interest. Daniel took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Actually, I'm your father. I didn't know about you for a long time, but when I found out, I wanted to be here for both of you. Silence enveloped them. Liam's eyes widened in surprise, while Noah's face darkened, a storm of emotions brewing within him. You're lying, Noah said sharply, taking a step back, his fists clenching at his sides. Noah, I promise I'm not lying, Daniel said, his voice steady but filled with urgency. I wish I had known sooner. If I had, I would have been there every single day. But you weren't, Noah shouted, his voice filled with pain and anger. You didn't care. You don't get to just show up now and expect everything to be fine. Daniel felt his heart shatter at Noah's words. He had anticipated anger, but the depth of Noah's hurt struck him like a blow. I know I made mistakes, and I can't change the past, Daniel said softly, his voice thick with emotion. But I want to be here now. I want to be a part of your lives. Liam stood in shock, caught between his brother's anger and Daniel's plea. I don't want to hear this. Noah turned on his heel, sprinting away through the crowd. Noah, Daniel called after him, panic rising in his chest. Liam's small hand gripped Daniel's, his eyes wide with fear. We have to find him. Stay close to me, Daniel instructed, his heart racing as he scanned the museum for any sign of Noah. He had to find his son and try to explain, to make him understand that he had never intended to be absent from their lives. They rushed through the exhibits, Daniel's mind racing as he imagined where Noah might have gone. He knew his son well enough to understand that when he was upset, he preferred to be alone. Think, Liam, where would Noah go? Liam bit his lip, deep in thought. He likes to hide by the fountain outside when he's mad. Let's go, Daniel said, grabbing Liam's hand as they hurried toward the exit. The chilly air hit them as they stepped outside, but Daniel barely noticed. His eyes scanned the area until he spotted Noah sitting on the edge of the fountain, his head buried in his arms, shoulders shaking. Noah! Liam called, rushing ahead. Noah flinched but didn't look up. Leave me alone, he muttered, his voice muffled. Daniel approached cautiously, kneeling a few feet away. Noah, please talk to me, he said gently. I know you're hurt, and I understand why. I'm not here to take your mom's place. I just want to be part of your lives. Noah finally looked up, his eyes red and filled with tears. You weren't there when we needed you, he cried, the pain in his voice palpable. Mom worked so hard and cried at night. You don't know what it was like. Daniel's heart ached as he listened to Noah's words. He wanted to defend himself, to explain that he hadn't known, but he realized that wasn't what Noah needed to hear right now. You're right, he said softly. I wasn't there, and I can't change that. But if I had known, I would have done everything I could to be there for you and Liam. Noah's expression wavered between anger and longing. Why now? He asked, his voice trembling. Why do you care all of a sudden? Because I love you both, Daniel replied honestly, his heart laid bare. I didn't know you existed, but now that I do, I can't stop thinking about you. I want to be here for you, not just for a few days, but forever. Noah's gaze softened slightly, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. I don't know if I believe you, he admitted quietly. That's okay, Daniel said, his voice steady. Take your time. I'll be here, waiting for you. Liam leaned closer to Noah, his voice tentative. Maybe he's telling the truth. You don't have to be alone. Noah looked between his brother and Daniel, the tension in his shoulders slowly easing as he considered their words. I don't know how to feel about this, he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. Neither do I, Daniel admitted, feeling a sense of relief that Noah was at least willing to talk. But I'm not going anywhere. Noah glanced down at the fountain, taking a deep breath. I need time, he said, his voice steadier now. Of course, Daniel replied, feeling a flicker of hope. As they stood together, the air between them shifted. It wasn't acceptance, not yet, but it was a step in the right direction. Daniel knew that rebuilding their relationship would take time, but he was willing to wait. Can we go get ice cream now? Liam asked, breaking the tension with his innocent enthusiasm. Noah looked at Daniel, his expression still conflicted, but less guarded. Sure, he said, albeit reluctantly. As they walked toward the ice cream shop, Daniel felt a weight lift slightly from his shoulders. They were still on a long journey, but he was determined to be there for both of his sons, no matter what it took. He would prove to them that he was ready to embrace the role of a father, one step at a time. In the weeks that followed, Daniel found himself adjusting to his new role as a father, though it was far from easy. Noah remained reserved, still grappling with the revelation of Daniel's identity, while Liam seemed to embrace every moment with his father, eager for their time together. Daniel cherished these moments with Liam, but felt the weight of Noah's distance every time they were together. Daniel continued to seek opportunities to bond with both boys. He made it a point to attend Liam's soccer practices, cheering him on from the sidelines, and he tried to engage Noah in casual conversations whenever they were together. But Noah often remained quiet, his responses short and clipped. One afternoon, Daniel decided to take the boys to the zoo again, hoping the familiar setting would help ease the tension. As they wandered through the various exhibits, he noticed Liam excitedly pointing out animals while Noah lagged behind, watching from a distance. Look, Noah, the giraffes are so tall, Liam exclaimed, his eyes shining with excitement as he tugged at Daniel's arm. Yeah, they're cool, Noah replied, his tone lacking enthusiasm. Daniel felt a pang in his heart. He wanted to connect with Noah, to share in the joy of the day, but every time he reached out, it felt like he was hitting a wall. He decided to take a different approach. Hey, Noah, he said, slowing his pace to walk beside him. What's your favorite animal here? Noah glanced at him, considering the question. I like the lions, he finally said. They're strong and powerful. Lions are amazing, Daniel agreed. Did you know they can run really fast? They're also very protective of their pride. Noah nodded, his interest piqued slightly. Yeah, I read that in a book. Maybe we can read more about them together, Daniel suggested, hoping to build on this small connection. Maybe, Noah replied, but for the first time, he didn't sound entirely dismissive. As the day continued, Daniel felt a flicker of hope. They spent time watching the animals, and he made sure to include Noah in the conversations, asking him questions and encouraging him to share his thoughts. Slowly, Daniel noticed Noah's demeanor softening, even if just a little. By the time they returned home, Daniel felt a sense of accomplishment. The day hadn't been perfect, but it felt like a step forward. That night, as they settled down to watch a movie together, Daniel caught Noah stealing glances at him, a hint of curiosity in his eyes. "Do you like this movie?" Daniel asked, trying to keep the conversation light. "It's okay," Noah replied, still somewhat guarded, but more engaged than usual. As the credits rolled, Daniel turned to both boys. "I had a great time today. I hope we can do this more often." Liam grinned, his enthusiasm contagious. "Yeah. Can we go back to the zoo next week?" Noah shrugged but didn't protest, which Daniel took as a good sign. The next few weeks were a mix of progress and setbacks. Daniel continued to be present in their lives, attending soccer games, helping with homework, and even cooking dinner together. Liam thrived in this new routine, while Noah slowly began to open up. He started asking Daniel questions about his life, his job, and even about his mother. One evening, while they were preparing dinner together, Noah hesitated before asking, "What was Mom like?" Daniel's heart ached at the question. She was incredible. She had a passion for art and loved to create beautiful things. She was also very strong and brave. "She used to paint a lot," Noah said softly, his eyes distant as he recalled memories of his mother. "Yes, she did. I wish I could have seen her work," Daniel replied, wanting to keep the conversation going. "Did she ever show you her paintings?" "No, not really," Noah admitted, looking down. "She used to tell us stories about her art." Daniel smiled, wanting to encourage Noah to share more. "I'd love to hear those stories. Maybe we can look at some of her old paintings together. I think it would be nice to remember her that way." Noah nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Yeah, maybe." As they sat down to eat, Daniel felt a sense of warmth and connection that had been elusive for so long. They were still navigating the complexities of their relationship, but each small step felt significant. One evening, Daniel decided to take a leap of faith. He gathered the boys and said, "I know things haven't been easy, but I want you both to know that I'm here for you, no matter what. We're a family now, and I'm not going anywhere." Liam beamed at him, but Noah looked contemplative. "I still don't know if I trust you," he said honestly. "That's okay, Noah. Trust takes time, and I'm willing to wait," Daniel replied, feeling a sense of determination. As the weeks turned into months, Daniel remained committed to building their relationship, even when it felt challenging. He continued to show up, to be present, and to listen. Slowly but surely, Noah began to soften, allowing Daniel glimpses into his world. One afternoon, while they were playing basketball in the driveway, Noah finally seemed to relax. After a particularly good shot, he glanced at Daniel and said, "You're not so bad after all." Daniel felt a rush of warmth at the compliment. "Thanks, Noah. That means a lot." And in that moment, he knew they were making progress. They were still on a long journey, but each small victory brought them closer together. Daniel was determined to prove to Noah and Liam that he was ready to be the father they deserved, and he wouldn't give up on them. Months later, as they stood by Isabella's grave on a bright spring morning, Daniel placed a hand on each of his son's shoulders. "She would be proud of you both," he said softly, his heart swelling with emotion. Liam smiled brightly, but Noah remained quiet. After a moment, he exhaled, "I think she'd be proud of you too." Daniel's heart soared at his son's words. For the first time, Noah didn't look away, and in that moment, Daniel knew they were finally becoming a family.